Hello, and welcome back to the SuperMegaClash podcast, the podcast companion to your wrestling fandom. Now, this show is going to be featuring the highs of, say, the WWE and New Japan to the lows of some really obscure indie that should maybe never exist, but they somehow get people involved. This show that I'm going to be covering this episode, I'm thinking it's going to be in the lower half of the spectrum than a 5-star show. Let's put it that way. It's $5 Wrestling, hosted by Colt Cabana and Marty DeRosa. Obviously, Colt Cabana, a huge star in the independent circuit. It's a shame he didn't get anything decent out of a big company, but that's just the way it goes, and he's happy with what he's doing. He's making money. He's a huge star in the independent circuit, so why not? And obviously, Marty DeRosa doing well in the stand-up scene and with his own wrestling podcast. Well, not wrestling podcast. It is a podcast, I believe, called Wrestling with Depression, which I recommend. Also, obviously, Art of Wrestling, but I didn't really have to say that. That one's quite obvious. This show is $5 Wrestling, all gimmicks needed, which... have I got that right? Yeah, it is. All Gimmicks Needed. You can find it on highspots.com, or if you've got their highspotswrestlingnetwork.com subscription, I believe it's only $7.99 after a 7-day free trial, so it's worth giving a go. I didn't realise that it was 2 years old. I thought $5 Wrestling was still going. It's just never really been on my radar. It's one of their pay-per-views, and I knew I wasn't expecting a high watermark when it comes to quality, but it was definitely a 2-hour block of time that I kind of wish I had back, but it was so bad it was almost good. I was surprised to see Caleb Connolly involved. Wearing a dress as well. I'm going to try my best not to give away any spoilers to any of the matches, just in case you want to watch them. When you've got the likes of Samoa Joey, Storm Maverick, One Horned Liger, my personal favourite in terms of names, Pork Chop Cash Jr., you know you're going to be in for a star-studded night of quality action, so I don't want to ruin it for you, but every match quite rightly needed a gimmick. And some of these gimmicks were funny as well. I believe they were all recommended or requested, I should say, by people on Twitter. And you have, loser must wear a dress and ring announce the whole show match between Dynamite and Mr. Sleazy. Dynamite, he's got some moves, all the wrong ones, but he's got some moves against Mr. Sleazy, who... best way of putting it is a Joey Ryan, Val Venus style wrestler with a little bit of a weight problem. So you could say still Val Venus now as Captain Cannabis. His videos are just cringeworthy. Him freestyling in the car. No, you're a whiter than white boy. You're so pasty it's ridiculous. You look like emulsion. Stop. Wow, tangent, sorry. Just Val Venus nowadays just makes me cringe so hard. It was none of these matches were that good, if I'm completely honest. They weren't, but it passed the time. So you got a loser wears a dress match. You've got a Vince Russo DVD on a pole match featuring Storm Maverick, who has a dodgy look. I'd say he's definitely one of those faces that you'd see on a wanted poster for, I don't know, bothering dogs. I think that's the best way of putting it. Yeah, he looks like a dog botherer. Against Green Machine, who looked just resplendent in his horrific neon green singlet. Samoa Joey, white boy being Samoa Joe, best way of putting it. And then King Jeremy Snaker, who was the cliched Undertaker indie ripoff, and he must have done about a dozen sit-ups during the show, which half of them, what was the point? Just stand up? But no, he needs to work his core. He needs to sneak in that ab workout, because by God, if he's going to have a match, he's not going to exercise as well. That's too much exertion. It wasn't really that much of a match. It wasn't. It wasn't. It just Samoa Joe and Green Machine fighting out on the floor, and Storm Maverick working the submissions, if I remember correctly. It was really, really weird. You got a mask versus mask match versus One Horned Liger and American Idiot. I love the gimmick that they've got, that the wrestlers can get talent violation warnings, and it kind of puts them on probation. If you're too good, you can't work, or you're warned that if you carry on being that good, you can't work. And I believe One Horned Liger got that once. He could jump off the top rope. It wasn't the prettiest of things to see, but he still did it. And yeah, Colt Cabana mentioned it quite often on commentary that he might need to get another warning. And what I like about this show is this sort of example of they are not trying to be good. They know it's going to be bad, so just go along with it. If you're starting to be good, you're ruining the fun of it, you know. It's always like, whenever you had physical education, PE, or sports when you were a kid, however you want to put it, just think back. There were always the pure garbage people at it. They're doing it because they have to, but you just know as soon as they get the ball or whatever, it's just going to be messed up. This is $5 wrestling in that context. But then you've also got the people in your class or your team that think they're the greatest, or they think that they're performing on the highest stage, so they put in 100,000,000%. But it doesn't matter because it's only an hour. You're just having a kickabout. You're not being graded on it. Just have some fun. But no, they've got to be really good. And $5 wrestling wipes that out. And it's great. The next match, again, not very much going on, and it is the friend that you're thinking, okay, you took a swing at it, but don't. A Pinata Lego death match. Cabana's favourite named wrestler, Colt 45, against Little Donnie, Mike Levy, and Terry Houston. White New Jack. I never, ever thought I'd say that there was a White New Jack, but Terry Houston is that White New Jack. And it's ridiculous. He comes out to Natural Born Killers, and I was rolling. I really was rolling. He's more likeable than New Jack. He is. He's not stabbing people or throwing people off of ledges or just calling people out on YouTube that I'm aware of. I might need to do some further looking. But he's still a garbage wrestler. Oh my God, is it bad? And I strangely want to see more. It's car crash. It really is car crash viewing. I really don't want to watch it, but at the same time I do. And I kind of got a little bit invested in the characters. I'd be lying if I didn't say that I wasn't supporting Terry Houston during this match, but I was. You know, the spots on the Lego, it was funny. Although it's been seen so many times with Lego, with gummy bears. I can't remember who used gummy bears instead of pins, thumbtacks. I'm gonna have to go on Twitter and find out. I'm gonna ask around and see what happens. That'll be for a future episode, people. But it still got a laugh out of me. As I said, I'm not going to spoil any of the results, because I want you to revel in this awfulness / greatness, however you want to put it, really. There was a 6-pack challenge that only involved 2 wrestlers because 4 didn't turn up, and also the commentators were drinking the Diet Cokes that were technically a 6-pack. JC Steele even against Pork Chop Cash Jr. Pork Chop Cash Jr. There was a little jingle because he should have his own fast food shop, restaurant, store, chain, whatever. Roll with me here. And it was one of the better matches on the show, I want to say, but I don't, because I don't think it was. I'm just going to refresh myself, actually. I'm putting it on now, as you can hear, because it was terrible. It really was terrible. Hang on a second. it does look like fun. I will give him that. It does look like a hell of a lot of fun. And $5 is all it should be. This is what I remember now. I've got it on now. JC Steele looked like a budget George the Animal Steele because he's wearing a whole singlet, but I know that George the Animal Steele didn't. But his back is hairy. Not, you've just reached the end of your teenage years and you've got a couple of patches on your back. He has proper hairy back, hairy shoulders. Everything is hairy apart from his head, which, again, is like George the Animal Steele. Even moves around like him, but I think that's just because he has no idea what he's doing. The impression that I get from $5 Wrestling is they've got minimal wrestling training. There's no psychology, and there's no finesse or technique in any of the moves, but they're still putting on something that, in a weird, strange way, is entertaining, and they do invest in it. It's just, as good old JR would say, it was bowling shoe ugly. Especially if you're against someone called Pork Chop Jr., who will not stop shouting about how angry he is and how he's going to use his anger to beat JC Steele. You had, just shows the budget again, step ladder match. Red Solo Cup versus Raider Rock. I know I put this on Twitter at SuperMegaClash. But if you look at Raider Rock and then you look at Jimmy King's son from Ready to Rumble, they are doppelgangers. Well, Raider Rock is a little bit skinnier, not by much, and he's wearing Ultimate Warrior face paint. But they've both got the same set of messed up teeth, similar face anyway, and just same technique really, because Jimmy King's son wasn't exactly the greatest in that film. Although he wasn't in it that much, and Raider Rock isn't either. And against Red Solo Cup, he wears all red, and the grandma was liking him in the crowd. Yes, there was a grandma in the crowd. Back in her day, it was 5-cent wrestling. And the match was pointless, but I was still getting invested in it. I was trapped. Especially when it came to the 2 out of 3 falls match for the $5 wrestling title between the Pride of Canada, Jeff Hart, who is decked out in neon pink. He's got a tash on the go. He looks like, I don't want to offend, but he looks like a stereotypical Canadian redneck, I guess, would be the best way of putting it. He just comes out, and he's obviously the heel of this, and he's against Big Donnie, who is over twice the size of Jeff Hart. I love the fact he's called Jeff Hart. I've heard he's Kenny Omega's favourite wrestler as well, or one of his favourites, which is mind-blowing. But obviously, there's a reason. He's good at being a heel. He can heel up and he can really rile a crowd. I'm thinking like Dudley Boys at Heatwave, where they told a mother and daughter that the daughter was taught how to suck dick by the mother. That sort of level against Big Donnie, who he's huge. His belly in this spandex leotard singlet, his belly comes down to his knees. I'm surprised he was able to move as much as he was, because I've seen people around that are almost as fat, just as fat, or fatter, that just struggle to move, and they're in one of those motorised wheelchairs, motorised scooters, just because, their legs are shot from having to carry that weight. He's able to carry it off. Not just that, but he is the $5 wrestling champion. Blows my mind. He beat Freight Train, I believe. We'll go on to Freight Train in a moment, obviously. The 3 falls were, if I remember, a 13 chop match. First person to get 13 chops wins. And they got to be in a row. Just silliness, but it worked. A first man standing match. Jeff Hart wasn't exactly a skinny fella himself, but he was still, capable of getting up easily. And Big Donnie getting up, forget about it. So there's a spoiler. That's going to be the only spoiler for you. Obviously, it goes to the 3rd fall. Big Donnie wins the first one. Jeff Hart wins first man standing, which I'm surprised I've never heard of it being done before, or I've never thought of it. It's a simple concept that I think could be done more, to be honest. Something just to waste a bit of time. Get two fat people to lie on the floor. Right, first person to stand up wins. Don't know what they'd win, but it'd just be entertaining to see. And then that third fall was a body slam match, which kind of gives it away as well, but never mind. It's just... I said earlier there was no psychology, but I kind of lied. Because there was the psychology of Jeff Hart trying to pick up Big Donnie, but obviously he can't, because Big Donnie is a big old guy. And it's funny to see it escalate, and then the post-match angle, I'm really surprised that Jeff Hart wasn't hurt. Not having a whole lot of training might be a little bit of a problem when a guy that could legit be about 500 pounds, maybe even more, goes for a splash. You need technique so you don't crush that person. He does two splashes and a running elbow drop. The first splash looked fine. Second splash, he didn't care. He was like Dynamite Kid, just launch. Unprotected. And he just lands all of his weight on Jeff Hart. I'm really surprised we weren't having Canadian bacon with those pancakes. It was horrible to see, but at the same time, it was impressive to see him take it. And then the third one, he did this weird running elbow drop where he hit him but kind of slid off. I don't know how he managed to get this momentum, because he is a big old boy. He's a big old boy. Hit the elbow drop, slid off, and almost did a baseball slide out of the ring. I want to see a more agile wrestler doing that. Talking to Kenny Omega, I'd love to see him try and do that. Do an elbow drop and then slide under the bottom rope. It's just like, yeah, I'm off now, bye. I think it was just because he was so fat. Newsflash, Donnie is fat. Big Donnie is fat. But just... it blew my mind that someone that size could do it. And I will give them the move of the night, actually. For guys that obviously weren't that well trained and that big, the DDT, the lifting impaler gangrel edge sort of DDT that Big Donnie does to Jeff Hart actually made me gasp, because it looked so good in context. It looked so good. And it actually looks impressive. So for that, I'll give him move of the night. And then I'll just quickly go on to the main event of the evening. The I Quit match between Jake Mandy, as his opponent calls him. Jake Manning of High Spots against Freight Train. Freight Train obviously is a freight train of popularity. His promos are things to admire. Go onto YouTube, type in Freight Train $5 Wrestling. Just watch anything that is under those names, because you're just going to have a laugh. I would pick out specific ones, but there's just no point, because you'll be missing out on so many others. Just watch them. Freight Train is usually interviewed by Jake Manning, because he was the interviewer, the promoter, the booker. He was a catch-all, but obviously he had turned heel and he wanted to destroy $5 Wrestling, and this was a big match between Freight Train and Jake Manning. Freight Train obviously trying to fight for the honour of the honour of $5 Wrestling, and it was an I Quit match, which was it was okay. It's not the greatest I Quit match, but it's not the worst. I will give this one note. I didn't know that Jake Manning ever wrestled. Obviously he did, because I'm learning. I liked how he healed it up before the match, where he spat at the camera. That was great. I miss that sort of thing where it's not just I'm a heel because I say something nasty. He's actually embodying it a little bit more. He's spitting at the camera. Like, you don't have to spit at people, but, you know, spitting at the camera is fine. He's just showing some more repulsive behaviour. I want to see more of that. And for it to be at a $5 wrestling show surely shows something that it should be done on a higher scale. It really should. The I Quit match itself, Jake Manning had to do a lot of the work. Obviously, Freight Train isn't a Zack Sabre Jr. or Dean Malenko when it comes to wrestling. Jake Manning might as well have threw himself through the table himself, although the table didn't break. Twice it didn't break. It took a toss from the top rope and a chokeslam, and it didn't break. Then, arguably the funniest moment of the show, Freight Train splashed him through, but he hit his face on the bit of the table that came up. So obviously the middle goes down and then the rest levers up. He hits his face flush with the table. Yeah, and he just shrugs it off. But he shrugs off everything. If you were complaining about Hiroshi Tanahashi and Kazuchika Okada at Wrestle Kingdom 10, where Okada didn't really sell much of the leg, wow, you're gonna be having nightmares when it comes to watching Freight Train, because Jake Manning worked the leg a little bit and was hitting him with the chair, hitting him with the chair in the knee. Freight Train weren't moving. He didn't even flinch. It was Road Warrior Hawk level of selling. But all that being said, he's hugely popular with the crowd. Everyone's woo woo. Yeah, the crowd love him, and that's the key thing, I suppose. There's lots of examples throughout history where selling, don't really need it, it's fine, just carry on with the show. There are times where Hogan didn't sell much. There's times when Warrior didn't sell much, but look at them, they were hugely popular. I know it's going to sound weird saying that at some point, but they were hugely popular when they were in the ring at some point, whilst they were no selling. So I think Freight Train might be on a bit of a winner there. Actually, I was going to say that the finish to that match was a little bit disappointing, but it wasn't, because it was disappointing. But in $5 wrestling, it's not. It's perfect. It perfectly encapsulated. I'm not going to ruin it, but if you get the chance, watch it, and you'll be there going, huh? Actually, that makes perfect sense. So, if you get the chance, check out All Gimmicks Needed. There's, I believe, there's another couple of shows on the High Spots Wrestling Network that you can watch, but also there's a fair bit on highspots.com anyway. But there's also interviews with Ready to Rock, who has the teeth, Dynamite getting robbed for some reason, and there's 2 other shows as well, not as long, so you can digest it a little bit easier. But I don't want to recommend it, but guess what? I am. If you get the chance, check out $5 Wrestling. All Gimmicks Needed. Who knows what's going to be up next? If you want to request anything, please do. You can tweet the show at SuperMegaClash, all one word, at SuperMegaClash. Or you can email in talktotheclash@gmail.com. But for now, I'll be leaving you with that, just to give you a little bit of homework. If you want to watch it, please do. It is a fun show, nonetheless. And yeah, see you next time. As I said on Twitter, I'm going to be trying to do a show about the Royal Rumble, the importance of the Royal Rumble. I'm also going to be doing a Royal Rumble that stuck out for me. I'm either going to pick the one that I first watched ever, or I'm going to pick the one that I had on VHS and I rinsed. I watched it a hell of a lot. There's also going to be a show where I'm going to be reminiscing about the early days of watching it on Channel 4 for myself. That will be coming up in a couple of weeks' time, and we'll just be getting the shows out as regularly as possible for you to enjoy out there. So for now, check out All Gimmicks Needed by $5 Wrestling. Check out the little mini dispatch I did on Nakamura being stripped of the Intercontinental title in New Japan. And I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.